Attention Voidwalkers, your boy's broken from his typical hunter obsession to bring you Warlock something pretty special today. So keep your eyes glued to the channel over the next few weeks, as I am also working on a character building guide that will take you through all the ins and outs of building something truly unique to your playstyle. Now, back to my typical video formula of filler script to buy extra time so my videos have better SEO. Let's take a look at skill trees, and I'll show you guys some pretty cool stuff. We're going to be working with the Attunement of Hunger here, so for all you new players out there, here's a real quick description of the 3 abilities that actually matter. First things first, Devour. Punch something in the mouth with a full melee charge to trigger Devour. The first kill will heal you, and for a very short time afterwards, subsequent kills will also regenerate health. Next is Insatiable. Killing enemies extends Devour and restores grenade energy. This is key. Third is Feed the Void. Holding down your grenade button / and/or key triggers Devour and heals you. It's useful for when you don't have a charged melee. As always, Blink is king and everything else is wrong, so I recommend Vortex because it has a blast radius, but Axion Bolt will also suffice if that's your thing. I'm not judging, I promise. At least not out loud. Moving on to weapons. If you've watched my videos in the past, then you've probably noticed a pattern by now that I always have shotguns and hand cannons, and that's because they're good. Especially this one, since it's capable of smashing baddies to bits with slugs of glorious gunpowder. One small step will serve you well. This one has slideways and 1-2 punch, both helpful for a guardian with places to go, and believe me, you will for sure be on the move. 9 times out of 10, I would rather down a bottle of bleach before recommending an auto rifle, but Reckless Oracle, which you obtain from Garden of Salvation, is one of the highest DPS auto rifles in the game right now, and legend has it that every time Lord Shaxx lays his head down to sleep at night, he has nightmares about this atrocious weapon. If you haven't obtained it yet, any secondary with Demolitionist will do. We're not using Ballistic Combo because our strength stat is well above 60 and thus is unnecessary since you can trigger Devour in 2 different ways. I don't have anything quippy to say about the heavy slot, but if you want to follow this guide, remember that grenade launchers are the most effective way of turning any living organism into red paste. Through Fire and Flood is basically death on a stick, so I'd recommend it. Whatever helps you stack bodies. Realistically, you'll be chucking grenades more than you'll be shooting if you're doing it right, so I'd focus more on something that feels comfortable than something awkward or unfamiliar to you as a player. For armor, I actually have 2 pieces that I tested this with. The Eye of Another World buffs your cooldowns and highlights big baddies, key for deciding which one of the poor souls that attacked you should die first. Next, Nezaric's Sin will proc Abyssal Extractors, which restores ability energy for 2 seconds on void kills. It stacks on itself and can be pretty handy in a pinch, which is another reason why I mentioned bringing Reckless Oracle. As for stats, well, actually that one's pretty easy. Take a look on screen here. You can see my stats, and next to them, the recommended stat tiers that I've balanced out after slaving over this build and nurturing it for 2 weeks straight like it's a newborn baby. Lastly, let's not forget about our mods. Weapon mods don't really matter all that much, so take whatever you want. For armor, however, you'll need 3 strength mods, 1 enhanced AR loader, and ashes to assets. Preferably enhanced, if you have it. Lastly, you'll need Overload Grenades and Disruptor Spike on your chest piece, along with Oppressive Darkness on your Bond. Now, you're ready to explode things with Space Magic. And by Space Magic, I mean Controlled Demolition. But your grenades aren't just for show here. They're also there for stacking debuffs on targets. So here's how all of this works. Oppressive Darkness triggers a 1.3 times damage buff for all the damage that you, the player, can dish out during the grenade effect's duration. Sadly, there is no math to tell how much damage Disruptor Spike takes from your targets, but given Bungie's fascination with 3s and 7s, it's fair to assume that the multiplier is exactly the same as Oppressive Darkness. So the encounter begins, right? You charge headfirst into battle, and the first thing you do is either melee or you eat your grenade. Either of those 2 will proc Devour, and the slaughterfest ensues. All of this is directed at charging your super energy, which is why we have Ashes to Assets on top of Devour. The key here is simple. Chuck a grenade, and if it doesn't kill your target, at the very least it weakens it and cuts their damage output by give or take 30% if you're sitting at 50 resilience, which does make up for lower defense. You've got abilities to work with, many of them to be specific, so once you trigger Devour, your goal is to throw as many grenades as humanly possible, and you do that by wiping the floor with as many enemies as you're physically capable of. One-shot weapons like this shotgun will charge your grenade normally, whereas using your assault rifle will stack Devour on top of Demolitionist, charging it even faster. If you wanted to sacrifice Disruptor Spike, you could also put a Breach Refractor on your chest piece, which would allow for a triple grenade charge, though that's a relatively risky thing to do since we're working with a pretty low resilience stat here. Since you're constantly going to be chucking grenades, lowering enemy damage output might not necessarily be such a bad thing. Emphasis on high damage weaponry is key here. The shotgun is used for moments when you have Devour active but don't have a grenade yet and you're swarmed. 1-2 punch lets you melee 1.5 times harder in the event that whoever swallowed the previously mentioned shell managed to somehow not die immediately. The auto rifle is used to stack Demolitionist on top of Devour at a mid-range, doubling your grenade charge rate. Its base damage is lower, so it's not really wise for it to be used at a close range, but your launcher is meant for big boy targets like bosses and stuff. Guys that you know for a fact are going to both take and deliver a fierce beating before they finally decide to give up and die, or for quick clears of ad waves. But above all else, do not forget to throw your grenades. That's literally what this entire video is about. If you have fastball, use it. It basically turns that fleshy meat stick we call a throwing arm into a sniper rifle, or that of an MLB pitcher. So, recap. Overload grenades. Cuts enemy damage output. Disruptor Spike. Stacks on top of that. Oppressive Darkness. 1.3 times damage buff to all damage you can put out. Remember that. It's important because it's literally the entire premise behind this build. Debuff and combust. Rinse, repeat. With all the grenades being thrown, provided you aren't completely incoherent and have the ability to aim said grenades with a bit of skill, you'll charge your super at a significantly increased rate, allowing for an even larger maximum damage output. And on top of that, the higher mobility stat gives you the speed to move and the ability to blink around in a brand new fashion. Not so much NBA hops as much as it is a quick repositioning or a bounce from one relatively safe area to the next, but still. Or you can just blink into the air and bring a Nova Bomb down on your enemies' faces. That works too. In short, Devour Warlock equals Murderous Warlock. I do hope everyone enjoyed this video. I know it's been at least a week since I've uploaded anything, but I was slaving over this build and another one at the same time, and the other one just wasn't working the way that I wanted it to. But it is on its way, that much I can promise. I'm also in the process of working on an advanced build guide for all players and classes, so be on the lookout for that gem here in the next few weeks or so. It will be a second before I can push those out, but they are coming. Not like the dragons in Game of Thrones, but still, it might be a hot minute. Probably just needs some more calibrations. Also, every individual who got the Mass Effect joke will have a whole $1 plus a vial full of all the hot air I spewed when I recorded it mailed to them within the next 5 to 7 business days, along with a box full of my gratitude and me announcing a brand new Mass Effect lore series which begins in January. Goodbye!